Welcome back to Longhorn Hip Hop. I'm J.D. Harris, and this is Release Day, your bi-weekly album review. Those of you familiar with the show know that this is our first episode back from the winter break, as well as my first album review since the end of November. Since it's been so long, I figured I would take this week to look back on some of the other albums that have dropped over the break that I got the chance to listen to, and give a general wrap-up of my opinions on them. I've also taken a bit of a different approach to my reviews lately, giving my thoughts on the album from a more broad perspective, instead of breaking down the individual tracks so that I can keep some of the spoilers away from everybody. Big K.R.I.T released Cadillactica. This has been one of my favorite albums in a while. K.R.I.T's flow is so laid back and seemingly effortless without ever sounding lazy. He never coasts through a song and has the music that has the sound to it that you can tell that he wanted. The beats are warm, slow, and full of soul, giving it the perfect mixture of southern sounds that we expect from K.R.I.T. The album made me feel like I was listening to a mixture of that old southern hip-hop with a bit of Outkast and UGK with some David Banner thrown in for the Mississippi flavor that he has. Some of the songs did sound a little bit too similar, which ended up being a very minimal drawback. Cadillactica gets a 4 out of 5 for me and is a must-listen. J.Cole put out his third album, 2014 Forrest Hills Drive, with little warning, and I'm pretty thankful for that. I was really skeptical to listen to it because a lot of people love to gas up Cole in my opinion, and I didn't like his last album near as much as my timeline on Twitter did. I saw a lot of folks dubbing this one as a classic, and that made me weary, but I wasn't disappointed. J. Cole was a lot more aggressive in his flows and his confidence in his own ability this go around. He had a lot of good bars, and when he was looking to just go in on a song, he did it. He had several tracks that had really awesome storytelling on it, which is something that I love from rappers personally. He gets into the whole sing-rapping thing a little bit, which is his prerogative, I guess, but I'm not too fond of it, even though I wasn't really mad at it. There are a couple songs in the middle of it that weren't really for me, which held it back from being a perfect piece, but it was definitely a great album. 2014 Forrest Hills Drive gets a 4.5 out of 5, and while I don't know if I can call it a classic yet like everybody else on my Twitter seemed to, it was easily one of the best albums of 2014, even if it barely made it in at the end of the year. New York rapper Fabolous came back from his hiatus, dropping the Young OG project. The album starts out with Lituation, a track title that created a buzz across Twitter when it came out for its tricky sound, which is a pretty good song, but after that I was pretty consistently underwhelmed. Fab can definitely spit and shows that he's still a better storyteller than 90% of the cats in the game today on a couple songs. As a whole though, nothing on the album really stands out. There are a group of 3 or 4 songs that I really enjoyed, but the rest of the music kind of melts together into a collection of basic sounding similar tracks from Fabolous. Don't get me wrong, I love him as an artist, but I really hope that his next project is a lot more like Loso's way than this one. The Young OG project disappointed and ends up at about a 2.5 out of 5 for me. Turn-up duo Rae Sremmurd put out their major label debut with Sremm Life and didn't disappoint. Something about these voices grabs my ear. The two guys always seem to have a beat that meshes really well with them and their unique tone that they have. The album started off a little bit flat for me, which is where some points were lost, but overall it lived up to expectations. When you have Mike Will doing all your beats and having him in your corner overall, it lets you know that the album's going to be flames, and the pair of Sway Lee and Slim Jimmy flow pretty well in their own regard to give you a project that you can throw on whenever a turn-up's needed. Sremm Life falls somewhere in the 3 out of 5 range in my opinion, but it's definitely an album that jumps up in the rating when the mood for it's right. It just has to be one of those things that you use in certain situations. Finally, Lupe Fiasco gives us Tetsuo and Youth after a long wait and a few delays. As long as it took, it's beyond worth the wait. This is the best album that's dropped in a good while, and even though it didn't hit stores until late January, to me, it already has to be a contender for Album of the Year. I was so happy listening to the album. Lupe's second album, The Cool, was one of my personal top 10 of all time, and it's great to hear something that's on that level after being pretty disappointed by Lasers and Food and Liquor 2. The beats are solid. Lupe comes with some crazy stylistic approaches. He goes back and forth from his more poetic style that he can do sometimes to being really wordy and going over people's heads with ease, all the way back to storytelling, which he does on another level from anyone else. Lupe tells stories, immerses another character, and paints a picture that nobody can really touch these days. The beats are great. The track list has plenty of big names on there that all do their thing when they're featured. 8 of the 16 songs on this album are 5 minutes or more, and 4 of them are longer than 6 minutes. So you don't end up feeling shorted, but they manage to not be long for no reason and lose your attention. Lupe put together an incredible piece and lived up to the standard that he set for me when I was a teenager figuring out what I loved about hip-hop. Tetsuo and Youth gets a well-deserved 5 out of 5 for me. Take some time and check out all these albums and decide if I have any idea what I'm talking about. If you liked the review, if you hated it, if I skipped over your favorite rapper, or if there's an album coming up that you think I absolutely have to listen to, hit me up on Twitter @_JDHarris7 and we can talk about it. Thank you all for watching. For Longhorn Hip Hop, I'm JD Harris and this has been Release Day.